Well, the buzz of the NFL Combine this week has been on our Bears and what we're going to do with the #1 overall pick. Now, the likely top draft pick at the draft, USC quarterback Caleb Williams, spoke to the media this morning. Our very own Cassie Carlson is there with much more on what he had to say.
Good morning, Brian. Well, we just wrapped up Caleb Williams' press conference. He was confident. He was engaged. It almost felt like you were talking to an NFL veteran quarterback when he was standing up there at the podium. He walked up on the stand, and the first thing he said was, "Good morning, everybody." So he definitely set the tone early with that, answered a bunch of questions, one being why he is not going through medicals here at the NFL Combine. That is the latest news when it comes to Caleb Williams. And to that, he said it was a decision made by his team and his family. He said he will be doing medicals when he goes on his 30 visits. But he said there are 32 NFL teams. Not everyone is going to be able to draft him, so they're going to keep that with the teams who are likely going to be in the mix of drafting him. Now, he also talked about not throwing at the Combine. I don't think many people expected him to. He said he's played more than 30 games in college, so they can go watch his tape. Some other things that he discussed was what his feelings are like about potentially not being the #1 overall pick, and he says that is not a thought in his mind. He says he's put in all the hard work and does not have a plan B. And, of course, everyone wants to know how his meeting with the Bears went. They had those 15 minutes to sit down face to face. So here's what he had to say.
The Bears was an 8-9 team last year, I believe, and 7-10. Sorry, and you know that's pretty good for a team that has the first pick. And they got a good defense. They got good players on offense, and you know it's pretty exciting. You know, if you could go into a situation like that.
And a lot of the questions with Caleb Williams is how he will be as a leader as he walks into an NFL locker room. And he pointed to his 3 college seasons where he said they were all different situations. He had to be a different type of leader each and every year, and pointed to last season when he said it was the first time really in his entire career where he was close to having a 500 record or below. And he said there was a point after USC lost to Utah where his head coach Lincoln Riley sat him down and said, "You can either grow from this or you can stay the same." And he took that moment as a teaching moment and decided that this was a good thing for him. He might not be in the best situation when he goes into the NFL. He pointed obviously to the Bears being a 7-10 team last season, a very different situation with them being the #1 overall pick than it typically is. So he said that he can be a leader. He might have to make some minor adjustments as he goes into a locker room, especially dealing with older guys who have been in the NFL, who have kids, are not all the same age anymore, but just something to point to. Some other notes, people are questioning his size. He says he's about the same size as Aaron Rodgers. When he was asked that question, he said it's actually the first time that he's ever been asked that to his face, so he was surprised to hear that question. And the most important thing he pointed out is that whatever team drafts him, he wants to make sure that everyone in the building, from the front office to the head coaches to the players to even the staff, the janitors in the building, they all want to win. That, to Caleb Williams, is the most important thing. We also heard from some other quarterbacks, including Drake May, Jaden Daniels. We'll continue to have some more of that coverage throughout the day, especially on Fox Local. Brian, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Cassie. We look forward to hearing from you for the rest of the Combine. Well, Cassie, Anthony Herron, and Lou will have 2 Scouting Combine specials today, a live streaming special at 1 p.m. on Fox Local. Recap of this week in Indianapolis. That's coming up tonight at 9:30 right here on Fox 32.